Podbean, your message amplified.
Ready to share your message with the world? Start your podcast journey with Podbean.
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 Podbean. Podbean, the AI-powered all-in-one podcast platform.
Thousands of businesses and enterprises trust Podbean to launch their podcasts.
Launch your podcast on Podbean today.
My school uses Podbean.
My church, too.
I love it. I really do.
You are now listening to Mark's Unexplained World by Mark the Medium. Available on Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Prime, Podbean, and most other podcast platforms. Tonight's episode is about the disappearance of Trevaline Evans. So it's over to you now, Mark, for this week's Vanishing Tale.
The disappearance of Trevaline Evans is a missing persons case dating back from 1990 that concerns a 52-year-old woman who disappeared from her antique shop in Denbighshire in Wales in the United Kingdom, with it being described by police as one of the strangest inquiries that they had had. Trevaline Evans vanished on the Saturday of the 16th of June in 1990 and was last seen or heard from at approximately 12:40 p.m. at her shop called Attic Antiques on Church Street in Llangollen by leaving a note on her shop door explaining that she would be back in 2 minutes. But despite a full-scale investigation and numerous television appeals as to whatever happened to the 52-year-old woman, it still remains a mystery, with some of the police who were working on the case back in the early 90s saying not only that it was without doubt the strangest missing person case that they had ever been involved with, but that it was also totally baffling as to how a happily married woman could just disappear without a trace like that on a sunny Saturday morning in the middle of a busy town centre. There have, of course, over the years, been numerous twists and turns over Trevaline Evans' disappearance, which includes the apparent sighting of her in a remote town in, of all places, Australia. However, whichever new leads the police have followed, nothing has ever come to fruition, and so to this day, Trevaline Evans has never been seen since. Greetings, Unexplainers. Thank you for tuning in again and listening to this puzzling episode of Mark's Unexplained World. My name is Mark Hughes. I'm a medium, a ufologist, a true crime buff, and a man with a very dark and disturbed sense of humour who realises that the first time I got myself a universal remote control, I thought to myself, this changes everything. But to give you a better idea of who I am and what I do, every week, usually on a Tuesday night, though occasionally on a Wednesday, allowing for bank holidays and busy weekends, I do a podcast on the many wide and various subjects that fall under the Unexplained banner. These include ufology, hauntings, disasters, and all sorts of other paranormal phenomena, including true crime, unsolved crime, serial killers, the darker side of some past celebrities, and the occasional missing person that often goes unnoticed. So if you are listening to this show on YouTube, please give us a review or an opinion of the episode, a subject that I can reply to. A thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification bell. Or if you are listening on any of the other podcast platforms, please give us a like and a follow. And if you do get a few minutes, perhaps you might like to check out some of my social media groups and pages, including Facebook, Instagram and TikTok, which are filled daily with all things unexplained and crime. I'll put the links to some of my socials in the description. In this episode, I'm going to tell you about the disappearance of Trevaline Evans. And this week's necessary disclaimer: This story is a tale that sadly involves the mystery regarding missing people, so may prove upsetting to some. You listen at your own discretion. Also, all opinions and comments are strictly my own, but the facts of the case remain. I also apologise if I pronounce anything incorrectly, especially some of the Welsh-sounding dialect. My English, although it is my first and only language, helped me realise again that it is not the fall that kills you, it's the sudden stop at the end. But let's get back to the story. Llangollen is a town and community that is situated on the River Dee in Denbighshire in Wales, and its riverside location forms the edge of the Berwyn Range, the Dee Valley section of the Clydian Range and the Dee Valley area, with this easternmost point of the Dee Valley Way being within the town itself. And as of the 2021 census, the community had a population of just 3,603. Llangollen takes its name from the Welsh word Llan, meaning a religious settlement, and the Saint Colin, who was a 7th century monk who founded the church beside the river. Above the town to its north is the Castell Dinas Bran, and beyond the castle is the lower Carboniferous limestone escarpment, which is otherwise known as the Eglwysig Rocks. I think I've got that right. I apologise if I haven't. Some of Llangollen's most notable people are the Welsh language poet Gruffydd Heirathog, who died in 1564, Jonathan Rogers from 1920 to 1964, who was a sailor and an Australian recipient of the George Cross, and Stephanie Booth from 1946 to 2016, who was a transsexual business owner and hotelier who starred in Hotel Stephanie for BBC Wales in 2008 and 2009. In 1990, Trevaline Evans was a 52-year-old mother to a son and grandmother who was married to her husband Richard Evans. And although the couple were living in the small town of Llangollen in North Wales at the time, they had recently bought a holiday bungalow in a coastal town called Rutland, which was approximately an hour away from where they lived. Trevaline Evans had lived in the small town of Llangollen practically her entire life, and while she was living there in her later years, she brought an antique shop called Attic Antiques, which was located on Church Street near the town centre, and as she was a collector of antiques as a hobby for most of her life, opening up a small shop that was dedicated to her interests was a lifelong ambition, as she was also known to buy antiquated items either from locals and dealers or various other people who were just passing through the town. During the week of the 11th of June in 1990, both Trevaline and Richard Evans were up in the small coastal town of Rutland, busy renovating and working away on the garden to their new holiday bungalow. Trevaline Evans, however, decided to return by herself to Llangollen on the Wednesday of the 13th of June. The next day, on the Thursday of the 14th of June at 9:15 a.m, a local housewife who was passing the Attic Antique shop noticed that Trevaline Evans was standing outside her premises talking to two men, one older and one younger. And the next day, on the Friday of the 15th, Trevaline Evans was seen yet again talking to the older of the two men by another witness, with the witnesses describing this older man as distinguished looking and very well dressed, wearing a navy blue suit and carrying a black briefcase. And on that same evening, on the 15th, another couple driving down Castle Street, where Attic Antiques was located, also noticed Trevaline Evans standing in the doorway of a cafe with a piece of paper in her hand, appearing to the witnesses that she was looking for someone due to her constantly coming in and out of the doorway and looking down the street. However, despite all this intrigue, the next day, on the Saturday of the 16th of June, after parking her car, a dark blue Ford Escort Estate, 200 yards away, Trevaline Evans opened her antique shop as usual at the normal time of 9:30 a.m. And from all accounts, the weather for that day was sunny and the Llangollen town centre being described as busy. During the Saturday morning of the 16th of June, approximately 25 friends and customers had called in, and according to the friends who visited, Trevaline Evans appeared to be relaxed and happy, having made plans to go out that night. At around 12:40 p.m, Trevaline Evans popped out of the shop and left a note on the door that said, and I quote,
"Back in 2 minutes."
It wasn't often that she would leave the premises on Saturdays, as they were known to be busy days for the shop. However, according to her friends, whenever she did, she would always leave some sort of note on the door. It's worth me pointing out here, although I've only managed to find this detail on one website, that there were some witnesses who claimed to have seen Trevaline Evans talking to a smartly dressed man in her shop shortly before she left the note. However, this smartly dressed man has never been traced. After this first short break, in part 2, we will look at more details prior to the Trevaline Evans disappearance and the investigation.
Dare to discover the unknown? Book your own paranormal investigation at HAPRA 2026. The Haunted Antiques and Paranormal Research Centre, HAPRA, is now taking 2026 bookings, and your next supernatural adventure is just a £50 deposit away. New for 2026, we've upgraded. Our location now features improved sound insulation on all our windows, making it easier than ever to hear what shouldn't be there. Bring your team, bring your equipment. Explore the unexplained. Record the impossible. Limited slots available, so secure yours now. Book now. Believe later. TheHauntedResearchCentre.com.
According to a few witnesses, at 1 p.m. on the day of Trevaline Evans' disappearance, she was seen buying an apple and a banana from a local high street store and was then seen crossing the road at nearby Castle Street. This was then later confirmed when a banana skin was found in a dustbin in her shop, although it's not certain if that was from before she left or after she returned. After these initial sightings, where she was for the next 90 minutes is not entirely clear. However, whilst the shop remained closed, customers who bought items from the street-side boxes outside of the premises placed their money through the letterbox on the door for their purchases. One of the last confirmed sightings of Trevaline Evans was at 2:30 p.m. near her home in Llangollen, where she was seen walking down Market Street in the direction of her antique shop. And at 2:35, 5 minutes after she was last seen on Market Street, another witness reported seeing a woman matching Trevaline's description walking in the opposite direction, heading out of the town along the A5 beside the Riverside Park. Although just a few minutes later, at 3:45, a third witness saw a woman matching Trevaline's description walking along the footpath into Park Avenue from the direction of the River Dee. And just before 6 p.m. on that same day of Trevaline's disappearance, another witness, a woman who was driving along Church Street, noticed that a man was standing outside Attic Antiques. However, she could not be certain if the door to the shop was either open or closed. However, at this point, Trevaline Evans' own family had begun to search for her themselves, and when they arrived at the antique shop later that night, the door was locked. Once the family were inside the antique shop, they found to their surprise that not only was her makeup compact still left open on the counter, but they also found her handbag along with all her credit cards still inside, her car keys and her jacket, along with some fruit and flowers that she had intended to take home, were all still left in the premises. And to top it all off, her car, which was the dark blue Ford Escort Estate, was still parked 200 yards away where she had originally left it. After Trevaline Evans' disappearance, an extensive police search was conducted around the area, with every household in Llangollen, as well as scores of people from further afield, being interviewed, more than 1,500 names being checked, and about 700 cars being eliminated from the police inquiries. Searches of the River Dee, the canal, mine shafts and caves in the Llangollen area were also carried out, but no sight nor sign of the missing 52-year-old Trevaline Evans was found, and no transactions have ever been made from any of Trevaline Evans' bank accounts since her disappearance. Even an artist's impression of one of the men that was seen by witnesses to be talking to her was drawn up and circulated during the original investigation back in 1990, but alas, to no avail. So the disappearance of Trevaline Evans has remained a complete mystery to not only the police, but also to her family members, as not even a body has ever been found. And as no money was ever taken from her bank account and from her handbag that was left in the shop, this indicated to the police that she may even have been abducted and murdered. I'm just going to take a short sidestep away from the Trevaline Evans case and talk about missing people in general and what sort of criteria is needed to be classed as one. And not only that, but it will probably lead us nicely into part 3 of this show. Well, according to Wikipedia and the College of Policing's website, a missing person is a person who has disappeared and whose status, as alive or dead, cannot be confirmed, as their location and condition are unknown. A person may go missing through either a voluntary disappearance or else due to an accident, a crime or death in a location where they cannot be found, for example such as at sea, or many more other reasons, with criminal abductions being the most widely reported among missing person cases. In most parts of the world, a missing person will usually be found pretty quickly. However, by contrast, some missing person cases remain unresolved for many years, which means the laws relating to these long-term cases are often complex, since in many jurisdictions, relatives and or third parties may not be able to deal with a missing person's assets until their death is considered proven by law and a formal death death certificate is issued, with situations, uncertainties and a lack of closure, or a funeral even, resulting when a person goes missing as being extremely painful, with long-lasting effects on both the family and friends. There are a number of organisations that seek to connect, share best practices and disseminate information and images of missing children to improve the effectiveness of missing children investigations. These include the Missing Persons Centre, the International Commission on Missing Persons, the International Centre for Missing and Exploited Children, or the ICMEC for short, as well as some national organisations, including the National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children in the US, Missing People in the UK, Child Focus in Belgium, and the Smile of the Child, which is located in Greece. And according to the College of Policing's website, it says of missing people, going missing should be treated as an indicator that the individual may be at risk of harm, so the safeguarding of vulnerable people is paramount, and a missing person report should be recognised as an opportunity to identify and address risks, with the reasons for a person deciding to go missing being complex and linked to a variety of social or family issues. Anyone whose whereabouts cannot be established will be considered as missing until they are located and that their well-being or otherwise is confirmed, adding that this is a broad definition which is intended to ensure that all cases of people suspected of being missing who are reported to the police are considered for a policing response. The nature of the response for missing people is for the operational decision makers, so not all reports of missing people will require immediate deployment of police resources. All reports of missing people sit within a continuum of risk, starting with very low risk through to high risk cases that require immediate and intensive action. However, all should be viewed as missing persons and the appropriate response initiated. In some cases, there will be very limited police action, with an initial investigation to inform a risk assessment, which is then followed by instructions or advice to the person who is reporting the case, but in other cases, immediate police action may be required. In cases where an unidentified body is involved with a missing person case, the police will undertake the following actions. All unidentified bodies or people reports must be sent to the UK Missing Persons Unit, or the UK MPU for short, within 48 hours of discovery. This requirement is to assist major crime investigations and bring closure to the families of missing people who are deceased, with the cancellation of such reports being submitted to the UK MPU within 24 hours of an identification being made. The UK MPU can assist police in such cases by:
Number 1.
Completing cross-match searches of the missing person report to determine if any remains are linked to any other missing person cases.
Number 2.
Providing advice around the use and retention of biometrics as part of any missing person investigations.
Number 3.
Providing access to the Dental Index, which is a collection of dental charts for all missing persons and unidentified remain cases.
Number 4.
Providing the Hermes, which is the UK MPU case management system, a reference for each case, requesting that the unidentified person's DNA is checked across all databases.
And lastly, number 5.
Providing advice and support around any international inquiries relating to unidentified remains cases. Statistics say that in the UK alone, there are 353,000 reported missing incidents every year, of which more than 137,000 are adults and nearly 215,000 are children, with some of these people who have gone missing more than once in a single year. After this second short break, in part 3 we will look at the further investigation into Trevaline Evans' disappearance and the sudden appearance of strange metal plaques with her name on it being found attached to wooden benches in Wales.
Fright Nights was established in 1999 as the first company in the world to offer overnight ghost hunt experiences to the general public, pioneering paranormal events since the last century. Fright Nights operate at hundreds of the UK's most haunted and exclusive venues. All events have their own team of experienced paranormal investigators, mediums and psychics. They have a VIP members club for regular returning guests, offering loyalty discounts and exclusive invitation-only events. They can also host private events for your family and friends. You can contact them on 07 852 998 628 or email them at office@frightnights.co.uk. Or take a look at their website at www.frightnights.co.uk, where you can see the many locations they investigate and learn about them and the opportunities they have available. Hundreds of ghost hunters join Fright Nights every month for the most thrilling ghost hunting experiences they'll never forget. If you haven't been on a ghost hunt before, then why not join them to see what it's all about? Why not visit their social media sites for up-to-date information on all the places they visit and to see what's coming up in the future? They look forward to seeing you all soon. Fright Nights Ghost Hunting Events. Remember, only the original will do.
In 1992, the woodland in the World's End area in Denbighshire in Wales was searched after a tip-off from someone claiming to be a spiritualist medium, and in 1993 police sniffer dogs searched a canal bank near Llangollen after another person, who was possibly another spiritual medium but I can't confirm either way, wrote to the police stating that she had been overwhelmed by a feeling that Trevaline was nearby. However, both of these searches turned up nothing. A few years later, and acting on information supplied by two brothers, Andrew and Lee Sutton, the North Wales Police dug up the bar at the Rudland Golf Club. However, again, nothing was found. It all started when the two brothers had brought a pre-owned camera, which they claimed showed a picture, possibly from an old negative, but I can't be sure, of some human remains buried under the club's floorboards, adding that the remains must have been removed by the time police had carried out their investigation. The brothers, Andrew and Lee Sutton, then complained about how the police handled the case to the Independent Office for Police Conduct. However, their complaint was referred back to the force and so subsequently rejected. Andrew Sutton, who is now a former Chief Auditor for Flintshire County Council, now living in Milton Keynes, England, and his brother Lee Sutton, who is a carpenter from Kimnell Bay along the north coast of Wales, still remain convinced about what they saw. However, both brothers do deny having anything to do with the strange appearance of a metal plaque, which was subsequently removed by the Denbighshire County Council, that was found attached to a wooden bench close to Pantyfuckwan, which were the remains of a 200-year-old miner's cottage on the hillside above Prestatyn, with the inscription scrawled on the plaque reading, and I quote,
"Justice awaits those responsible for the removal and disposal of Trevaline Evans, in this life or the next, from Rutland Golf Club on March the 19th, 2019, at noon. May the Lord have mercy upon their soul."
Lee Sutton said that he had been to see the bench after being told about it by a friend, but added, and I quote, "It's all very strange. I don't know what to do with it and why they would choose to put it there." Also claiming that he had been told that shortly before Christmas, a group of people held an all-night vigil alongside the bench. His brother, Andrew Sutton, is equally baffled by the appearance of the plaque. Strangely enough, it is also laid to claim that the aforementioned Pantyfuckwan plaque is identical to the typefacing of that of a plaque which was fixed previously, about a year earlier, to another wooden bench on the Prestatyn Dissath walkway, but again was later removed by the Denbighshire County Council. Only this plaque read, and again I quote,
"In memory of Trevaline Evans, vanished June the 16th, 1990, found in Rutland Golf Club, March the 14th, 2019, removed March the 19th, 2019, R.I.P.
However, Trevaline Evans was not known to have any connection to any of these places in Prestatyn. Come forward a few years to 2001, and the Trevaline Evans case is reopened with hopes that new forensic techniques would help to lead to a breakthrough. Trevaline's husband, Richard Evans, was arrested and questioned. However, he was soon released without any charge. And come forward again to 2010 on the 20th anniversary of her disappearance, and although the case is reopened once again, it still remains unsolved. In 2023, a Channel 4 documentary called In the Footsteps of Killers suggested that there may be a link between the Trevaline Evans disappearance and the double murder of Christopher Halliwell, though this was far from a proven fact. On an interesting side note here, 52-year-old Christopher Halliwell was a former taxi driver who murdered 2 young women and so consequently was sentenced to a whole life order, meaning he will spend the rest of his life in prison. Christopher Halliwell is serving a life sentence for the murder of the 22-year-old Sian O'Callaghan, whom he abducted in his taxi as she made her way home from a night out in Swindon in the March of 2011, and for the murder of 20-year-old Becky Godden in the January of 2003. There have been many apparent sightings of Trevaline Evans over the years, which include a remote town in Australia and in the city of London, with Interpol also investigating reports of her being seen in France. However, nothing ever came to fruition. Police also once again believe that her disappearance may have been connected to the serial killer Robin Liggis, but they soon ruled out any connection. And on another quick interesting side note here, Robin Stanislaw Liggis was a serial killer who operated in Shropshire, killing 3 men back in 1994. In 2011, he was ordered to be detained indefinitely in a secure mental hospital as he suffered from the effects of a stroke. However, he eventually died alone in his wheelchair after a medical episode at the ripe old age of 70 on the 16th of December in 2022. Sadly, Trevaline's only son died of a heart attack in 1999 in his late 30s, and her husband, Richard, passed away in 2015 with his wife's disappearance left unsolved. Trevaline's younger brother, Len Davis, says that he is still hopeful that one day the truth about his sister's disappearance will come to light.
If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Trevaline Evans, please contact the police on 101 or call Crime Stoppers anonymously on 0800 555 111 from the UK. And for international tips, you can use the contact information on the Missing the Missing website.
I will, of course, be putting contact numbers in the description details for this podcast.
Thank you all for taking time out to listen to this episode of Mark's Unexplained World. In our next episode, show number 164, we are going to be looking at the Flight 105 UFO sighting. The Flight 105 UFO sighting occurred on the 4th of July in 1947, when 3 crew members aboard a United Airlines flight reported seeing multiple unidentified flying objects in the skies over the Pacific Northwest. The incident was among at least 800 similar sightings in the United States within a few weeks in the summer of 1947, but the first report to be given by professional pilots.
This show was written and researched by myself, Mark Hughes, and proofread and edited by Linda Hughes. The pronunciations of all names and that dreadful Welsh accent was actually all mine. The actors in this episode were Mark Hughes, Linda Hughes and Denise Poolar, with special thanks to Neil Packer and the staff at the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre in Hinckley, and of course a big thank you to everyone for listening. We never run out of ideas here at the office for Mark's Unexplained World podcast, but if you know of any other intriguing stories under the Unexplained banner, including ufology, hauntings, disasters and any other sort of paranormal phenomena, as well as true crime, unsolved crime and missing people, just drop me a direct message and I'll see what I can do. I'll also include the name of the person who suggested the idea in the end credits of the podcast, if they're happy for me to do so, of course. And again, just to add, if you are listening to this show on YouTube, please give us a review and a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you are listening on any of the other podcast platforms, again, give us a like and a follow. I thank you in advance. Mark's Unexplained World, because there's more to the paranormal than meets the third eye. And remember, guys, keep it real, because being real is better than being perfect. No AI was used or harmed in the making of this or any other episode of Mark's Unexplained World. This show and all its contents are covered by basic copyright of Mark the Medium.